A brand new custom modular cabin from one of those Instagram-ready prefab companies runs $140,000 installed. A proper hand-built timber frame off-grid retreat will cost you north of $200,000 before you run a single wire or hang a single door. Nobody standing in the parking lot of the home show is going to say this out loud, but that dented old steel arch sitting on the back corner of a farmer's property 2 miles down the road, the one with the surface rust nobody looked at twice, will still be standing long after the shiny new cabin is sitting in a contractor's queue with a rotted sill plate and a repair bill that reads $35,000. The structures I'm about to show you cost less than a used pickup truck. They were built by people who did not know how to cut a corner, and most of them were never intended to be homes at all. These are 7 dirt-cheap mini Quonsets nobody buys, counted down from number 7 all the way to the one I would put my own money on, and every single one of them will outlast every new cabin on the market. Number 7, the classic Q model. We kick off the countdown with the shape most people picture when they hear the word Quonset. The full continuous arch, curved from the ground all the way over the top with no break, no flat wall, nothing but a single rolling steel shell, connecting the foundation on one side to the foundation on the other. You can find a small Q model kit for under $6,000. People see the shape and assume they cannot live inside it. They picture those curved walls and immediately start thinking about where a sofa is supposed to go, and that single assumption is the entire reason the price stays on the floor. But here is what the man buying the $140,000 modular cabin does not understand about basic geometry. The continuous arch is the strongest structural shape in nature. A Roman aqueduct built 2,000 years ago is still standing because engineers in sandals understood that principle before anyone patented a prefab wall panel. No square corner means no weak corner. No interior load-bearing walls means a completely open floor plan that a man can configure any way he chooses without calling an architect. And when 20 inches of heavy wet snow lands on the roof of that brand new prefab cabin and the ridge beam starts to flex in ways the warranty does not cover, the Q model sheds that same load the way it always has. The arch deflects force instead of fighting it, and it was doing that long before any of the brands selling modular cabins today had a load to put on a brochure. The curved interior is only a problem if a man insists on building a traditional house inside a non-traditional shell. If he is building a retreat, a working studio, or a serious off-grid base camp, the curve becomes the character of the place. That is where the countdown starts. It only climbs from here. Number 6, the S model. Our first structure for the man who wants conventional living space without surrendering the unconventional shell. The S model is the straight wall variant of the Quonset family. The side walls rise vertically for several feet before the arch begins overhead, and that single design change solves nearly every complaint a person voices about the classic Q model. You get standard ceiling height along the walls, a vertical surface for standard cabinet installation, and the ability to frame a proper sleeping loft without fighting the curve. A clean S model kit in a small footprint runs between $8,000 and $14,000 depending on gauge and span. People walk past it at the trade show because it looks exactly like a commercial warehouse or a mechanic's shop. That is exactly the right comparison, because the same engineering that has kept a working mechanic's roof over his equipment through 40 years of wind, ice, and neglect is keeping yours over your head. The S model is not trying to look like a cabin, it is trying to last a century. The man who financed a $140,000 modular home is paying a contractor right now to replace the OSB sheathing that soaked through last fall. That is not a defect in one particular build. That is a material choice made at the factory level to keep the catalog price competitive, and the buyer is the one who pays for it 5 years later. Number 5. The A model. This is the structure that fools people, and it fools them in the best possible way. The A model carries a traditional pitched roof profile. 2 straight steel panels meeting at a ridge, the same silhouette as any conventional house a man has ever seen from the road. It blends into a wooded lot without announcing itself, the way the round arch does from a quarter-mile away. From 100 yards, it looks like a cabin, because the roofline reads like one. People buy A models as cheap equipment garages and completely miss what they are holding. A small A model kit with a footprint suitable for serious off-grid living runs between $7,000 and $16,000. Assembled on a proper foundation with a straightforward interior build-out, a man ends up with a structure that cost a fraction of a prefab, built from heavy-gauge steel that will not rot in a wet winter, will not catch fire from a stray ember, and will not develop the slow, invisible mold problem, quietly destroying the air quality inside that beautiful cedar-clad retreat 2 lots over. The A model is the stealth option on this list. But number 4 is where things get genuinely interesting, because number 4 cannot be ordered from any catalogue on Earth. Number 4, the military surplus Quonset. These cannot be found on a company website. A man hunts for them at farm auctions, estate sales, and government surplus listings, and when he finds one, he is usually the only person in the room who understands what he is looking at. A mid-century military Quonset hut in demountable condition changes hands for anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000, depending on size and who else shows up that day. The steel in a military-spec Quonset from the 1950s and 1960s is a different category of material from anything a modern kit manufacturer sells at that price point. These structures were engineered to survive Arctic deployments, forward operating environments, and decades of complete maintenance neglect with no one watching them. The gauge is heavier, the galvanization is thicker. And because they were designed to be assembled in the field by soldiers who had never read a blueprint, every component is simple, standardized, and fully replicable by a man with basic hand tools. There is surface rust on most of them. That surface rust is not structural failure. A wire brush, a coat of self-etching primer, and one honest afternoon of work addresses it completely. The man buying a new modular cabin is paying for materials built to a price point designed around a profit margin. The man buying the surplus Quonset is paying almost nothing for materials overbuilt to a military specification no modern manufacturer could meet and still compete on showroom price. That difference will show itself in 50 years when one of those structures is still standing and the other is a landfill statistic. Number 3, the P model. From here on, these are the structures built to take a genuine beating over a lifetime. The P model Quonset is the bolt-together arch panel system. Where the classic Q model ships as a rolled continuous steel sheet, the P model arrives as a series of interlocking curved steel panels assembled by hand, one bolt at a time, until the structure closes on itself. That assembly process is precisely what drives the casual buyer away. He sees the parts count, and he puts the catalogue back on the table and walks to the next booth. That reaction benefits every serious builder paying attention, because it keeps the price exactly where a resourceful man wants it. Once every bolt is seated and torqued, the resulting structure is mechanically interlocked in a way a single-skin panel system simply cannot replicate. There is no wood rotting inside a hidden wall cavity. There is no shingle to peel back in a 70-mile-an-hour gust at 2 in the morning. There is no crawl space for moisture to collect in the dark and do its slow, expensive work. A small P model kit for a serious off-grid footprint runs between $9,000 and $18,000. An owner who takes his time with the assembly ends up with a structure that will, without any exaggeration, outlast him and cost him almost nothing to maintain in the years between. The prefab cabin in the brochure has a charming covered porch in the photograph. That porch is already pulling away from the ledger board. The P model does not have that problem because it was never built with a ledger board in the first place. If this is the kind of honest conversation you are not getting from anyone else in this space, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. I cover one of these every week, and the top two are where it gets genuinely serious. Number 2. The grain bin conversion. This one will make your neighbors completely certain you have lost your mind, and you should take that as a compliment and keep right on building. A used grain bin purchased at a farm auction runs anywhere from $800 to $4,000, depending on size and condition. It is circular, it is corrugated, and it is aerodynamically one of the most resilient shapes a standing structure can take on open flat ground. When a tornado makes contact with a square structure, it finds 4 flat faces and a series of right-angle corners to grab and peel back. When it makes contact with a round structure, the wind wraps around the exterior shell and keeps moving. That is fluid dynamics, and the same principle protecting grain bins in Tornado Alley every single spring will protect the man who converts one into a serious year-round, off-grid shelter. The interior layout requires custom work, and there is no shortcut around that. Standard furniture is not manufactured for circular rooms. But a man resourceful enough to pursue an off-grid life seriously is resourceful enough to build a curved shelf and enjoy doing it. The grain bin conversion is the outlier on this entire list. But the one sitting at number 1 is the reason serious builders in this space keep their mouths shut about their favorite material at any gathering where new cabin buyers might be listening. Number 1, the 22-gauge Galvalume Plus steel arch. Galvalume Plus is an aluminum zinc alloy coating applied to high-tensile steel at the mill level before the sheet is ever cut or formed into anything. It is the same coating specification used in industrial roofing, long-span agricultural infrastructure, and critical utility projects where a maintenance failure is simply not an option. It does not rust under normal environmental conditions. It requires no paint to maintain structural integrity over decades of exposure. A small arch structure built from 22-gauge Galvalume Plus in a footprint appropriate for real off-grid living can be kitted, shipped, and fully assembled for under $12,000. Here is the part that ought to make every man watching this sit straight up. That aluminum zinc coating is not a surface finish the way paint is. It is a metallurgical bond between the steel substrate and a sacrificial barrier layer that repairs itself at the microscopic level when the surface is scratched in normal use. It is the same technology keeping telecommunications towers standing in saltwater coastal environments for 40 years without a maintenance crew. A man buys this kit, assembles it with 2 or 3 friends over a long weekend, hoses it off once a year, and that is his entire maintenance program for the next several decades. While the man who financed the $140,000 custom cabin is writing a check to a roofing contractor for the 2nd time in 8 years, the Quonset owner is sitting inside a dry, structurally sound building that cost him a fraction of that single roofing bill. This is the back row structure nobody is fighting over at the home show. It photographs poorly beside a cedar-clad cabin with a wraparound porch and a wood-burning fireplace visible through the window. The man standing in front of the shiny prefab display will not glance at the steel arch in the corner. But the man who walks over and runs his hand along that sheet metal and starts asking the right questions is the man who goes home with the single smartest dollar on the entire floor. Buy it once, put it together yourself, and never write a maintenance check that does not make sense. And that is the thread running through every single one of these 7 structures. Everybody lines up for the brand name modular cabin and pays $140,000 for the aesthetic and the listing photograph. Meanwhile, these steel structures were built just as tough by engineers who assumed you would want to understand and maintain what you actually owned. They came along before the industry figured out that thinner walls and a well-lit showroom floor move more units than structural honesty ever will. The new cabin is built to be financed. These were built to be owned. But before any man goes writing a check on any of these 7, there is something he absolutely needs to see first. Because for every indestructible Quonset that will outlive its owner and his sons after him, there are 3 critical mistakes that will turn that very same steel shell into a sweating, rusting, unlivable disaster inside of 5 years. One of those mistakes involves the specific type of insulation sprayed directly onto the interior steel surface. And it is the single error that half the people watching this video right now are about to make on their own builds. I pulled all 3 of those apart in the video on your screen right now, and the first one on that list is the exact decision that looks like the smart move right up until the day it is too late to fix it.